taking time out of his busy day, which we always appreciate, is Congressman Adam Kinzinger. Congressman, good morning.
Buddy, this is just the highlight of my week, you know?
Well,
Being on
I'm
the phone
sorry.
with you, it's just amazing. I can live now.
Okay, well, that's good. Make sure you break that part out, Joe, for the promo.
Right.
Yeah, that's going to look good on the resume there. Hey, congratulations on your reelection.
Thank you. Look, I just want to say thank you to everybody. I was hoping to do 60%. We got basically 66, and it was a massive win. And I don't say that to brag. I say thank you to everybody for the support. And even if you didn't, I'm proud to represent you. But just wanted to say that.
You know, a lot of people think, okay, well, good. Now we got 4 years that we just don't even need to think about this sort of thing. Well, in your position, it doesn't quite work that way.
Yeah, we're. I mean, basically, if you think about it, I pull petitions now for the election for the House next time in, I think, about 8 months, and plus you have redistricting that's going to happen, and so it's going to be interesting. But let me just tell you, for anybody that is sad right now about the presidential race, I am too. I voted for President Trump, obviously, but I will tell you, it was a huge Republican year, and we gained a ton of seats in the House. I mean, we are very close to having the majority. We're not going to have it, but it's going to be really close. Hopefully we hold the Senate. Illinois had a great year, if you think about beating the progressive tax and some of the other things. And so I think this is a lesson to all of us, which is, as Illinois Republicans, if you are one, let's all do our best to try to be as unified as we can, and we can take Illinois. We can at least make some changes.
And speaking of the House, the inroads made by Republican women are very, very impressive.
It is. I think I had heard, and if it's wrong, I'm not saying this intentionally, but I think I'd heard that every Democratic incumbent that we beat was beaten by a woman or a minority, and we don't play identity politics. I don't like that. But I also think it is important, though, to point out that, look, people that say that the Republican Party, is the party of basically old white men, well, we did pretty well among Hispanics. We did a lot better than we have in a long time among African Americans and women. And, I think we can compete there. Democrats can't say now that we're just the old racist party.
What do you say to people who are still looking at what's going on? And let's look at Michigan deciding to rescind votes to certify, saying that their families were actually threatened. The mess that is going on in Georgia. A lot of people are saying we're not done here yet.
Yeah. So look, I say this. We can kind of walk and chew gum at the same time. So on the one hand, we've got to move forward with a transition, and I know that curdles some people's bones to hear that, but that is, the transition process actually starts in May and June. So President-elect Biden would get a transition allowance basically before the election even happens. And that's, in fact, what happened with President Trump when people thought that, there was no way President Trump's going to win in 2016. He still had a transition going. You can do that. You can congratulate, him on an apparent victory, and at the same time say, where there's irregularity, we have to go after this. I think if I would give recommendation to President Trump, it would be, first off, let's get a little less of the TV action on this and a little more of actual legal stuff. I think it was Mick Mulvaney that said it right, which is, sometimes Rudy Giuliani acts like this is a TV show, and I think people tune it out. And I think, going forward with whatever allegations of fraud you have, look, there is going to be no doubt that there is voter fraud out there. I think there is in every election. Is it enough to overturn an election? Probably not. I don't think so. But he has every right to pursue that. At the same time, we can't start throwing out things like fraudulent election until we know, because that is the kind of thing, in my mind, that has real long-term implications.
Yeah, because already, the foundations of our faith in these sorts of things have been shaken. I think by anybody's measure, it's how much are we going to shake them up?
That's right. And I always try to remind people that, think right now is just the worst time ever, and, we're going to have, overthrow the government. Like, I got all of it, right? I understand that there is voter fraud that happens, that Republicans are treated unfairly in the media. Well, guess what? We always have been treated unfairly in the media, and we still win elections. And, whining about it I don't think is going to change anything. It's going out and selling the message that we have. And lastly, I'll say this. what happens when the next Democratic president says voter fraud, and then we are outraged about that? Do we have a right to be outraged? So, let's just be careful. Let's pursue any allegation of voter fraud. But I'm very uncomfortable with people just tweeting unfair election, overthrow the results. That has real implications that I don't think people are thinking about.
Right. And if we're going to do these sorts of things, take them by legal channels, not by using the word overthrow.
That's right. And keep in mind, whenever, if this whole union idea fell apart, right, and because the only thing that holds us together is the idea that your vote counts in an election, because it's like, theoretically, as an average citizen, the only time you ever get a say in your government is when you vote. If you all of a sudden believe that doesn't count because of fraudulent elections, you look into the potential of the whole thing falling apart. And by the way, anything you are outraged about today, if this union falls apart, will pale in comparison to the fact that, you can't get your blood thinners and heart medicine all of a sudden. And so think that through. There's real implications here. But at the same time, we do have to fight against allegations of voter fraud and stuff where it exists.
Oh, absolutely. And when you look at the idea that your vote counts and that you cast your vote and that has an impact on how things are done. Here in Illinois, we know the feeling of that not being quite accurate because you've got one guy from one small district who controls everything in the state, and the rest of the state doesn't have any say over it.
That's right. And I'll tell you, this is where I think we need to be very much excited is, I actually thought when this fair tax thing started, so-called fair tax thing started, like we may be able to beat it, but only because it has to get 60%. It only got 45%. And then you look at the retention, the non-retention of Justice Kilbride, which was huge. This Supreme Court, so technically the Supreme Court now is tied 3-3. They appointed somebody that is kind of middle of the road. And then we'll get to vote on probably a Republican Supreme Court justice in 2 years. Those are the kind of big wins that can do things like when 700,000 people signed to have fair redistricting, and Kilbride threw that out, actually allow it to stay. But you're right, Mike Madigan and the Chicago machine, a guy that has a district of 70, 80,000 or whatever, that all of a sudden controls everything.
Yep, everything. Well, but looking at the news this morning, it seems that some sort of vice is closing in. We'll see where all of that goes.
That's right. That's right. Look, if you violate the public trust, you deserve to go. I do fear who's going to replace Mike Madigan, because it's going to be somebody, I think, from the far, far left. And oh boy.
Oh yeah. So this is one of those the devil you know for the devil you don't trades. Yeah. Should make for some interesting reading.
That's right.
Tell us about the 3 C's initiative. I just read the press release on this.
Yeah. So this is a really kind of conservative perspective of, how do we do development and stuff without? Remember, back in the old days, you just write a big check to a country. And this is about leveraging private dollars with public funding. And so it's up in the Baltic areas in Eastern Europe, focused on energy security and energy independence against Russia, and it leverages private dollars. So we got this thing, passed, and we actually have the 3 C's initiative signed into law, but this thing we got passed for even a further expansion of that. And like I said, it's a really good thing. We have, we're working hard in the National Defense Authorization Act to get in more sanctions on what's called the Nord Stream 2, Russia's Nord Stream 2 pipeline, where they're basically trying to get around. Germany closed all their nuclear power plants and then realized they also promised to not make any carbon, and so they decided that Russia could make the carbon for them. And so we're trying to keep that sanctioned. So, it's all about leveraging America's energy strength against Russia so that we don't have to fight them, but we can use energy as a soft power weapon.
Nice, and actually it involves a lot of thought about how the way things are laid out. It's some very, very interesting reading here, and talking about trying to counter Russian and Chinese malignant influence abroad in some of these pipelines, and how it ends up being great for the people here at home.
Yeah, it's good for jobs. It's good for the industry. If you look at the fact that drilling for oil, we have an overabundance of natural gas. Being able to export or help others with that is huge. And by the way, it's nice when Russia can't use energy as a weapon. It makes it much less likely that we'd ever fight them on a battlefield, but it lets American strength be American strength, and that's exactly what we do good at.
Yeah, when you guys have a second, Google it, do a little reading on it. It's the 3 C's initiative, which just unanimously passed the House of Representatives. Congressman, as always, I appreciate you carving time out of your day every time we get together. I'll look forward to our next interview.
You bet, my man. Take care. Thank you.